So as you can probably tell by looking at the speakers up on the board here, we have an exciting session for those of you interested in aerial robotics. And we're going to start that portion of the session right now with Professor Dario Floreano. He's a professor at the EPFL. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so the title has slightly changed from what you have in the program as I was fine-tuning this presentation. And you have heard a few talks about aerial robotics before in this conference, and you will hear more later on, as Kevin mentioned. I would like to take a bird's eye view on this topic. If you look today at the drones, the commercial drones that are available out there, 99%, I would say, to a first approximation, at least in numbers, fall into these two categories, fixed wings and multicopters. And these two types of drones have contrasting advantages and disadvantages. So fixed wing drones, they generate lift automatically as they move in space. And therefore, they require, for a comparable mass compared to multicopters, much less energy to fly. So multicopters, instead, they spend most of their energy to fight gravity and to stay up in the air. And then they change the velocity of the rotational speed of the propellers in order to move around. So for the same mass, multicopters can fly much shorter time. However, multicopters are much more agile. So they can stand in place, they can rapidly change the velocity vector, they can take off and land from a spot, something that instead fixed-wing drones cannot do. Fixed-wing drones, in order to turn, they require a certain space, a certain radius. And so it turns out that at the end of the day, the type of drone that people buy for their application depends on the application. Those that require drones that do very precise inspection, can turn on spot, or can stay close to an object, take multicopters, and they use only within a short range. Otherwise, they use fixed-wing drones, for example, for monitoring large spaces in agriculture. And so both drones have a limited flight envelope, as we say. How can we possibly solve this problem? And it turns out, and you may have seen already this video before, that birds are not only capable of flying very efficiently for long distances without flapping a wing, but they can also perform very agile maneuvers. They can fly in confined spaces. They can avoid obstacles. And the way in which they do so is not so much because they flap the wings, but because they change the aerial surface and the direction of their aerial surfaces, which are the wings and the tail, compared to their velocity vector. And by doing so, they can change the total aerodynamic forces very effectively, and they can perform this agile maneuver. So birds can transition between very efficient flight, very little energy consumption, to very agile maneuvers. However, great, so if you go to biologists and you ask, how do birds do this? Well, there is very little information out there because birds cannot be studied in laboratory conditions so easily as insects can. Also, they are more intelligent animals. They do what they like depending on many types of conditions. In addition, if you go to talk to a mechanical engineer or a physicist, what are the dynamical forces that are involved in this type of flights? They do not know because analytically it's a very difficult problem due to the morphing surfaces, the aeroelastic phenomena, and it's also a computationally not very tractable phenomenon. So how can we solve this problem? Well, we can build robots that approximate some of these morphing capabilities. And in particular here, I showed to you one that we built some time ago. It's a drone that is modeled partly on the northern goshawk. It's an animal that can fly very efficiently for tens or hundreds of kilometers with just a few wings flaps, and at the same time is a very agile predator. And what we studied here, we developed these artificial feather wings that can morph their surfaces asymmetrically or symmetrically, as well as their tail. The drone still has a propeller because it cannot flap the wings. As I mentioned, flapping the wings is not the most important thing that allows these animals to be agile. And indeed, most birds, actually all birds, innately know how to fly as they go out of the nest. Instead, they have to learn the precise maneuvers that I mentioned before. And so we built this drone in order to understand the contribution of synergistically moving the tail and the wing to perform agile maneuvers. And we learned a number of lessons by putting this drone in front of an open wind tunnel and on the top of a robotic arm. Here is not the same drone that you see, but the robotic arm has a load cell sensor that allows us to measure the drag and lift forces, as well as the roll, yaw, and pitch moments that the drone experiences on different angles of attacks as moved by the robotic arm, at different wind speeds generated by the wind tunnel. And all these data are collected by a computer, which generates a mathematical model, which allows us to build a simulation which is physics-based. And once we got the simulator, we can understand what are the different forces at play in order to make this drone fly. And we can use this information for actually programming the different sequences of tail and wing configurations that are required to perform these maneuvers. Now, this drone is not autonomous. It is still driven by the PhD student who developed this drone, who goes on the remote controller between different configurations. So clearly, this type of drones could be controlled by machine learning. They are very difficult to control because the student is only transitioning the drone between very few of all the possible configurations. Now, given these initial promising results, with another postdoc, Wufan here, we developed an even more morphing and actuated drone, which actually models a raptor bird. It can also move, change the dihedral angle of the wings, and does not have any longer a vertical tail, a vertical structure on the tail. It can twist the tail just like birds can. And now we can, with this drone, we can ask a few more additional questions. And one of the interesting things is that biologists do not know how birds do, is the coordination of the wing twisting with the wing morphing to perform very agile maneuvers and rapidly turn the velocity vector, just like quadrupeds can do. But also biologists have noticed that birds, when they soar in the sky, they can turn without moving the wings at all. They're just moving the tail. But how can they possibly turn by moving the tail? The aerodynamic forces should be balanced. By using our drone and putting it in front of the wind tunnel, we realized that for raptor birds, like our drones has been designed, that have the tail very close to the wing, when the tail twists, the wake from the wings creates turbulent flow that cancels out the lift forces on one side of the tail, which generates a roll moment that makes the drone turn without moving the wings, or can help the drone contribute using to the turning using the tail. And of course, we could put this in practice. Here is in the lab. We can have this drone that makes different types of maneuvers to do gentle rolls without using the wings, or combining the wing and the tail to perform very agile maneuvers. Now, how can these drones become autonomous just like birds do? We should understand what are the type of optimization criteria that they use. And here, Graham Taylor, a professor at the University of Oxford, has studied different hypotheses about how actually birds do the perch maneuver, where they rapidly decelerate after a diving phase, and they climb up and they disperse or they dissipate almost entirely all the kinetic energy until they perch. And what Graham Taylor in this paper in Nature a couple of years ago hypothesized is that birds try to dissipate as much kinetic energy as possible when they go to arrive to the perching point, and they try to minimize the amount of distance covered at very high angle of attack, where essentially they are stalled, before reaching the perching areas. Whereas roboticists that have tried to perform this robotic maneuver with reinforcement learning or other criteria have always tried to minimize the amount of time covered by the drone from the transition state to the perching state. And we said, oh, we could test the Graham Taylor's hypothesis by making modification of our drone, which is called the Lee Seagull in this case, which models the mass and the aerial surfaces and the morphing capabilities that the Arisok uses in this particular perching maneuver. And we can use trajectory optimization to test different type of optimization criteria. And to make a very long story short, we actually validated Graham Taylor's hypothesis. Here you have the bird, the drone, the physical drone, and the simulated drone. And we showed that if the drone tries to perch using the optimization criteria that Graham Taylor hypothesized, it will actually display the same trajectory, it will dissipate the same amount of kinetic energy, and it will show the same type of morphing capabilities that the birds, the same type of morphing sequence that the birds has. Instead, if you use different optimization criteria, you will dissipate much less energy, the drone will have a different trajectory. So clearly, now we also understand what the optimization criteria are. And now we have everything we need. We have a physics-based simulator with a lot of data. We have a drone, and we have a reward function where we could actually use machine learning to start making these drones autonomous. And this is what we are working on. I don't have yet results. But birds not only fly, they also walk, hop, and even they jump to take off. And the question is, why do they jump to take off? Why don't they simply flap their wings, as sometimes they do, to take off? And so my PhD student, Won Dong, who is going to graduate now, teamed up with Monica Daly and my colleague Auke and Isbert, and modeled or captured some of the properties of the elastic joints in the knee and in the feet of the bird to replicate and understand the power consumption of these drones when they jump and take off, or when they simply take off using their aerial surfaces. We did not use, in this case, a feather drone because we wanted to focus the study on the legs only. But the idea is the same. And so we have this drone here, and what we could, to make a long story short, what we could understand is that if the drone uses the legs to jump in the air, and then starts flapping the wings, the total amount of energy is substantially, dramatically less than using the muscles to agitate the wings and to accelerate in the air. And so here you see our drone next to a bird that Won Dong has been filming on the campus. You see taking off, jumping for taking off, but he can also walk. You can use the same legs, just like the bird does, to walk on the ground. Or he could also hop over a gap, something that a drone with wheels cannot possibly do. Or you could hop on an elevated surface, just like birds do, and from there you can take off. So it's great. I want to close with the last thing. Birds not only fly in the sky, but they also go underwater. And they use, again, their wings to move not only on the surface in the air, but also to go and dive and then maneuver underwater. And how do they actually do that? What type of flapping frequencies, what type of wing shapes can lead or can allow these animals to transition between these two spaces using the minimal energy is still an open question. There are very few hypotheses out there. And so Raphaël Zouffret, who is a postdoc in my lab, and Auki in Isper's lab, who will actually join faculty of MIT, and we'll start the Aura Lab. That stands for Aerial and Underwater Robotic Applications Lab in January 25. He designed a flapping wing robot, and he studied, among different things, the form factors of the wings, the flapping frequencies, and the power that allow these drones not only to fly in the air, but also use the wings to move, as you can see, to swim underwater. Not only, but he also studied how these drones, the different form factors that allow these drones to autonomously take off from underwater and then gain speed up in the air. So I think birds are a great inspiration, and I think we are just starting to scratch the surface of the problem, but it's a great time to be in this field because you can use now data-driven physics-based simulator. We can use soft and compliant robots. There is a lot of research, neuromorphic sensor, neuromorphic vision, vision-based flight control, multimodal locomotion. Instead of manipulation, I call it beak-pulation because birds actually use a lot the beak. And we can look also even at collective behavior. So it's a great place to be, and if I were young researchers, I would dive into this field. Thank you.
Thank you, Dario. Questions?
Oh, thanks for the interesting talk. I have one question. Like in birds, it's not only about the shape of the wing and flapping, but also about the structure of the feathers to actually reduce turbulences and so on. So isn't it also necessary to really like put a bird in the wind channel?
Yes. Yes, indeed. The design of the feathers, it's a very good question. The design of the feathers is super important. It's one of the topics. We spend a lot of time into how we design it and the variable stiffness along the feather, and there are different types of feathers distributed across the wing. It's an open question, and there is a professor, Visa, at Princeton, who has a lab dedicated to this. We started to discuss how we could take the results of her work. And there are people who put the birds and the wings in the wind tunnel. We also have a robotic arm with the feathers, and David Lenting did a lot of work here in the Netherlands and Stanford studying that. But again, if you look at the aerodynamic forces, most of them are generated by this amazing amount of aerial surface change and the change of the velocity vectors. These have amazing, enormous effect independently of how the feathers look like. And indeed, there have been some research in the 60s when it was still not considered unethical, where people cut the feathers of the bird, of pigeons. They put a knot around some of them together, and the birds could still fly and display the same amount of maneuvers, although they were energetically less efficient.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in thanking Dario.